Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a 737 pilot and a member of PMDG's tech team. In today's tutorial we will talk about the no engine bleed takeoff, which is pretty much the Boeing 737 equivalent to the PAX off takeoff in the A320. I'm sure that all of you will be familiar with the PAX off takeoff in the Airbus, and here's how we do it in the 737. First of all, we don't normally do it, because the risk of messing something up or damaging some of the systems is much greater in the 737 than it is, for example, in the Airbus. The no engine bleed takeoff is only done when performance absolutely requires it. And I want to give you a quick example of it right now. This is the original Boeing OPT in Rome Ciampino Airport, where we are standing currently, and we have selected runway 15, dry runway, calm winds, temperature 35 degrees as we often have in summer in Rome, at a QNH of 1013. In this one I have selected air conditioning auto, which is basically our standard takeoff configuration, and we can see that due to the short runway of only 2,203 meters, our takeoff weight is limited to 66,996 kilograms. So we can barely lift out 67 tons here in Ciampino in a standard configuration. Now, the first thing we would do if we encounter such a limit and plan our flight at a higher takeoff weight would be to change around the flap settings and see if another flap setting can give us a higher takeoff weight. But in this case, after we've done that, we determined that flaps 5 gives us the best possible restricted takeoff weight already. Therefore, we can now try the no engine bleed takeoff. And here is the no engine bleed takeoff in the very same scenario set up once again. And as we can see, we now have a restricted takeoff weight of 68,310 kilos. So we're able to lift up an additional 1,314 kilos by using the no engine bleed takeoff procedure. Again, we only do this if there is no way to attain the desired takeoff performance by changing flap settings due to the added complexity of the procedure. So, let's talk about the actual procedure itself then. Due to mess ups that has happened in the past, my airline has actually set up an entire checklist for the no engine bleed takeoff and also for the after takeoff no engine bleed checklist. Now, my airplane is, even though we're standing on the runway, my airplane is currently configured in the configuration where it would be after a normal engine start, with the exception that I just need to set the packs back to off. I had them on to avoid a zone temperature warning in the high temperatures of 35 degrees here, but never mind. So, my airplane is currently in a typical after start configuration, and from here on we would do the before taxi no engine bleed checklist. A very quick note there: if anti-ice is required for taxi, complete the normal before taxi procedure, leave the APU running, and use the checklist below for a no engine bleed takeoff just prior to takeoff. If anti-ice is not required for taxi, complete the following before taxi no engine bleed checklist instead of the normal before takeoff checklist. The checklist itself is conducted as a challenge and response procedure, so the first officer is going to read challenge and response, and then the captain is going to action and repeat the response. So, here we go. Generators on. On. APU on. On. Start switch is continuous. Continuous. Probe heat on. On. Anti-ice, as required, off. Off. Right pack switch, auto. And this is where things start to get interesting. So right pack, auto. Isolation valve switch, closed. Closed. Left pack switch, auto. Auto. Engine 1 bleed air switch, off. Off. APU bleed air switch, on. On. Engine number 2 bleed air switch, off. Off. From here on, basically we follow the normal checklist. Flaps, 5 required, 5 selected, green light. So we have 5 required, 5 selected, and we just have to wait a second to get the light. Stabilizer trim, 5.6 units set, and 5.6 units set. Start lever is idly turned, flight controls checked, recall checked, before taxi no engine bleed, checklist complete. So we can see the big difference right here. Configured for a no engine bleed takeoff, we have 100.4% takeoff N1 versus 99.6% in the standard configuration. And that is the big difference here. Now, we are pretty much prepared for our departure now. From here on, we are going to read the normal before takeoff checklist to and below the line, and only after takeoff we will then have a special checklist once again. So I will quickly carry out the lineup items. Also, I am quickly going to cancel the zone temperature lights due to the high temperatures that we have around. So let's do our lineup stuff. And with that we are prepared for the takeoff. So we are going to do the normal takeoff now, and we are going to fly our standard noise abatement departure procedure number 1 out of Rome, and only after the flaps are retracted we then have to do a specialized procedure once again. Just be aware, the APU will not be able to pressurize your airplane above 17,000 feet, and in case the APU generators are still on, it will not be able to pressurize the aircraft above 10,000 feet. Okay, and with that, we're ready to go. Let's do a quick takeoff configuration check. And that looks all normal. So, takeoff. Stabilized. Set takeoff thrust. Takeoff thrust set, indications normal. 80 knots. V1, rotate. Gear up. Pause at rate. Command A. So for now we do nothing. Only once the flaps are up, we are going to reconfigure the aircraft. Buck up. That's done that. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Flaps up. Speed checked. Flaps up. Flaps up, no lights. VNAV. After takeoff, no engine bleed checklist. PM, re-challenge and response, then action and repeat response. So, engine number 2 bleed air switch on. That is engine number 2 bleed air switch on. APU bleed air switch off. Off. Now we wait until the rate of climb has actually stabilized. So, you can see it switching around a little bit right now. We wait until this is stabilized, which it now is. Then engine number 1 bleed air switch on. On. Isolation valve switch auto. Auto. APU off. Now, when you're about to switch the APU off, be careful that the engine generators are actually online. The 737 does have an automatic generator switching in the air when the APU is powering the aircraft, however, we don't want to risk it, so make sure the APU gen of bus light shows, and then the APU is off. And that is the after takeoff no engine bleed checklist completed down to the line. From here on we continue with the standard after takeoff checklist. And that basically concludes the entire procedure. Now, as we are about to climb to a higher flight level, let's quickly talk about a couple of the different threats associated with the no engine bleed procedures. The most important point here is non-normal operation. So if an engine failure occurs, do not position the bleed air switches on until reaching 1,500 feet or obstacle clearance height has been attained. That is very important here. Also be aware that all the non-normal checklists of the Boeing 737 are designed for a standard panel configuration. So if you have to carry out any non-normal checklist and you are still in the no engine bleed configuration, be very careful that you actually carry out the checklist, possibly amended, so that you can keep your aircraft pressurized. There is no sense in trying to solve a pack malfunction by switching a pack off, only to get a cabin altitude warning shortly thereafter. So be very careful there. Be aware that momentary unpressurized flight is acceptable below 10,000 feet. However, if planning to operate above 10,000 feet, the aircraft must be pressurized by at least one air source. Real-life incidents in the past have proven that crew must use great care when reconfiguring the pressurization panel after takeoff, and you guys are reminded that checking that the APU is off during the 10 checks is another safety net in the event that the crew would have completed the wrong after takeoff checklist. I can admit it, it's happened to me already in the past that we did a no engine bleed takeoff, and because we did them so rarely, I might have done maybe 3 or 4 of those in my entire career so far. Because we do them so rarely, it is very easy just to call for the standard after takeoff checklist, which then of course is not going to turn the engine bleeds on and might eventually lead to a loss of cabin pressure incident. So be aware that when you did a no engine bleed takeoff and you carry out the 10 checks, the APU is part of them, so if that APU is on in the 10 checks, then always have a look over to the bleed air panel to see how that is configured and reconfigure it as applicable. Another small note there, should you follow this procedure from your memory, if we think about the no engine bleed configuration for a second, this is what it looks like. It is very important that you turn on the number 2 bleed air system first. The isolation valve is closed in this configuration, which means the right pack is currently not doing anything. So make sure that when you switch that right pack on, the isolation valve is still closed, because otherwise it might easily happen that air can flow through an opened isolation valve from the number 2 bleed air to the APU, cause the back pressure in the APU and thereby damage your APU. So it's very important that you switch the right bleed air switch on first while the isolation valve is closed. Then do not turn on the number 1 bleed air before your APU bleed is off. This way you protect the APU from the back pressure of the air in case both the APU bleed as well as an engine bleed is open. Alright, that shall conclude this tutorial on the no engine bleed takeoff. I hope that you have learned something today, and if you did, then do like, comment and subscribe, and let me know if there is any other procedure that you want to see covered. For now, thank you very much for your attention, and finally I want to use this moment to remind you of my new channel membership option that I have enabled. As a channel member, you can get early access to new videos, you can get exclusive content like phone wallpapers, and most importantly, in first class membership, you can even directly request me to do new videos. That is going to be it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again, hopefully very soon.